Welcome to another edition of In the Chute. Calen, what have you got for us today?
All right, so for this round, the big thing I want to discuss was the 10-year beef projection. So, yeah, half time we already got kicked in the
Why
belly
do you
with it.
insist on depressing me on
I,
everyone?
I don't know. We started off on a good topic today, and we got hopefully two more better ones. But I'm gonna share the screen real quick, and what I did. Yep, I got a pink background. There it is. Um,
That shows
uh,
up.
so on Twitter, I saw this a couple days ago, and it shows the projections from 2020 to 2030, and the only two commodities in agriculture that are projected to decrease in um, prices in the U.S. specifically are corn and beef, which is interesting because uh, a lot of your whiskey is made of corn, and it seems like we're a high drinking society and culture. And then we also we eat a lot of beef, but it looks like more and more it's going to go towards hogs, and they don't have lamb in here or sheep at all, which is interesting. I'd like to see that now that I'm looking at this again. But eggs make sense because people, they're eating healthier. But I think, politically speaking, what worries me is a lot of this stuff seems to be more on the quote healthy side, and it seems to be something that has been pushed where stay away from your fats and stuff like that, and and you're heavy in fats typically in red meat, but that doesn't necessarily mean just because you get rid of red meat that it's healthier. So I
Right.
I, I think unfortunately we may be losing on the information awareness campaign, and
Well, and I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot of I think a lot of reasons for that. You get people that are on kicks or they have an agenda
yeah,
to push. And what really surprised me one time is our friend. I love this guy. He's like a brother. Joe Garcia. He's really close to us. Good family friend. He's a really good cardiologist. And we were having some grilled steaks. And I've maybe mentioned this before, but eating steak and put this big old rib steak on his plate off the grill. And I thought, okay. And I told him, I said, this is homegrown. It's got a little bit of a trim around it. It's not got a lot of fat, but there's some fat on there. And I'm trying to think, just, he can see it obviously, but he says, yeah, no, this is good. Because I actually, I didn't say anything right away. I watched him eat, and he didn't trim that fat off like you do. I mean,
yeah.
you can't, oh my God, you're just such a picky little,
I am
every little,
like
if it's got any fat, it gets trimmed off.
I grew up with beef, and I don't like eating the fat. It's a texture thing.
Yeah,
Mom cannot eat yogurt for texture
right.
reasons. I'm the same way. It's really hard for
Yogurt,
me to eat
pudding,
fat.
yeah,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's a texture thing. But with him, it was he ate this, and I said, "Hey Joe, what's the deal? I see you're diving right into this fat around this edge." And I said, as a cardiologist, I would have thought you would have avoided that. And he says,
yeah,
of course, you know how Joe always goes, dude, he goes, no. He said, some fat is healthy for you.
hmm
You have to have some fat in your diet. You don't want to eat a whole bunch of fat every day. Yeah,
right.
but you need to have this as a supplement. It's good for you. And beef is some of the best protein that you can get, better than chicken, pork, others. So there's a campaign. It's a propaganda. I call it propaganda
No,
campaign, my
I
opinion.
agree. Yeah,
And we eat chicken, we eat pork. Um, we're not big lamb eaters. We just have not
no,
done that much. I've had lamb, I've had mutton, I've had really bad stuff, I've had some really good stuff. Um, but it's just not something we are familiar with as a staple in our family. There's a lot of things that go into these 10-year projections, though.
right.
Is it politics? Is it do we have a downturn? Have we got low numbers in our cattle? Are they going to come back to where you're going to have an overabundance of them and it drives the price down? Um, are the packers moving in more with foreign owned interests, and they're trying to put us out of business? And I think there's a lot of that. Chinese, Brazil, um, they got large interest in the big four packers. I think we've talked about this before. And I think, they're going to make a concerted effort to squeeze us out as small family ranches and go to corporate ranching, corporate farming, where they can cut the overhead. They don't have to pay anybody for it. They just do it
Yeah.
at cost, and then control your food supply. But when they control your food supply, you've got some serious problems,
Oh, definitely.
not just as an economy, but as a country.
Well, and that's
Talk about
where,
civil unrest.
yeah, well, and just as a quick sidebar, that's where I also disagree with outside nations owning businesses in the United States, because what happens if those, we've got really four big meat packers in the United States. What happens if those are all internationally owned, not US owned, and suddenly they
Right,
decide to up and leave and you no longer have cattle producers in the United States? Well, okay,
right.
there's a big part of your meat intake. But the other thing too, and this is, I think, like you said, the propaganda part. Um, I don't know, it's too early to tell, but I think there's a possibility where you could compare this a lot to the early 2000s when they said, uh, don't consume fat, because what happened with that was, everybody said don't consume fat, and ended up creating a lot of products that were sugar based, and obesity immediately rose, and it skyrocketed in the United States. And now they're finding out, oh, no, 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 it's okay, you can have fats in your system, and just make sure it's the right stuff, like avocados, nuts, stuff like that, and start reducing your sugar. And people are going, oh, okay. So I could see where beef could be the same thing. They've been going, anti-beef for a long time, and I say they as a very general concept of health nuts and so-called scientists and doctors. But
Well, but it doesn't even have to be anybody with any credibility
no, I
or
agree,
or
because
any knowledge, really.
even if there is credibility, though, they can buy them, because that's what happened with the sugar issue. Was they bought scientists. Like, there's documentaries that have shown they physically told scientists to rule a certain way during studies, and gave them millions of dollars, and that's what
Right.
resulted in high um, sugar consumption in the United States, because people thought, oh, there's no fat in this, but there's a million grams of sugar, it's okay for me, and that's what led to what we see. But what I'm trying to make the point of is, this could be the early stages of beef, whereas they're going to push beef to such a minimum that people will go, well, I can do, you know, uh, pork, and I can do sheep or whatever, and I can do fish. And then they're going to start losing needed supplement that's in a beef, specifically iron. I think it's pretty high in iron, isn't it? And, and, uh,
Oh yeah.
and then obviously the fats and stuff, because those are, what I'm saying is, all those fats, or all those meats for the most part, are pretty low in fat. They're
Right.
leaner meat, and now suddenly you go hard right or hard left, and then you're going to be missing a big part of your potential uh, diet. And I see where that would be an issue. So we'll see. It's going to, unfortunately, I think it's going to affect a lot more families and businesses before we actually have a verdict. But
Well, that and you can create an animal that is high in fat, or you can create one that is low in fat or much
yeah.
lower than fat, much more like a venison,
Hmm.
where it's all depends on how you feed it. A lot of people like a straight grass fed, no grain, and that animal is going to be much leaner,
Right.
but they won't quite have the taste that you would think of as that richness of taste. It's great meat. It's good for you on beef, but it will also be hard to chew. It's hard. It's not tender because it doesn't have that fat marbling in the meat, which is desirable for tenderness. So there's a big trade-off depending on what you want. And when you say all beef, like this 10-year projection, that's a very broad brush. As is, corn's probably a little bit more narrow. I mean, you can modify some corn and stuff like that. They've done that genetically, but which is a whole nother thing. But you can't. You can plant that seed, and you're going to get what you're going to get. You can raise a beef, and then you can manipulate how the fat content is in that animal based on how you treat it, what you feed it or don't feed it, and what kind of grasses that it eats. So I mean, there's some big changes or big differences in that as well. And that's about marketing as also, you know, we've always liked a good grass fat steer to butcher, really nice and roly poly, and the fat ripples off of him, but he hasn't been eating grain. And then go ahead and finish him for 45 days on some really high corn, oats, barley with no sugar, no molasses, just good steamed oats, rolled oats, corn, barley mix, cracked corn, and let him eat that to get that quick gain at the end. That provides your marbling, your tenderness, and that fat layer. And you know, to us, we like the grass fat, but we're not putting them in a feedlot like our cattle go to, and are strictly on a corn or silage based meat type of creation. I mean, ours are a lot different than that.
Yeah. So I guess, like I said, the verdict's still out. I think there's a lot of information that, I don't know, we can maybe dive into that into a deeper conversation someday.
Yeah.
With I think I agree, propaganda. I think there's a lot of stuff there, and I would like to see some of those studies that have maybe pushed us towards getting away from beef and whatnot, which is interesting too, because I know there's a lot of athletes that eat high amounts of protein, and
Right.
where do they go a lot of the times? It's going to be a lot of the times going towards beef. Now, will they use pork and sheep and whatnot? Absolutely. But
Sure.
and of course there's also fish and whatnot for their intake, but a lot of the times for those heavy amounts of calories and for the energy and everything that comes with your food in the least amount possible, it's beef. Eat beef.
Right. Well, and your mom and I've had a running thing from God, the time we were first married, is if she makes a light breakfast and she has like eggs and hash browns or eggs and toast,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, where's the meat? And she goes, well, the protein's right here. I said, eggs are not protein.
I mean, they are.
No,
but
they are
they're
not meat.
They're protein,
No, they're
but they're
not.
not meat. I will agree, they're not meat, but they are protein.
There's not even enough protein in there.
As a guy who eats pretty darn healthy and is currently on a very systematic weight loss, yes, eggs are protein, but they are not meat. I will agree.
All right, we better put this one to pasture. You're wrong.